Welcome back. It's Monday again, and that means it's time for Q&A. In today's episode, we will be talking about powder nodes and harmonics. Stand by for Winning in the Wind. Today's question comes to us from one of our patrons. Seawolf asks, Keith, what do you understand by powder node? Is it just velocity flattening? As I always do for my patrons, I've already answered by email. But we both think this could be helpful to everyone. So here we go. First, let me define what I mean by powder or velocity node. I use the terms interchangeably at times, so you'll have to forgive me. All right, here's my definition. A powder node is the powder charge range that results in the smallest groups on the target at the competition distance. Let's break that down a little for my use. I develop loads for my 284s with the intention of shooting at 1,000 yards. The long range requires two things to provide consistently small groups on target. The first is smaller dispersions due to harmonics from the rifle systems. That means that the rifle groups well at both short range and long range without tossing shots horizontally or vertically. Likewise, I need a stable point of impact from adjacent loadings in my ladder. You can get occasional good groups from a load that is in transit along the vibration path of the barrel, but consistent winning performance comes from stability. That means that the selected charge to be used has plus or minus some amount of powder where the point of impact doesn't shift at short range. In the 284, I usually see at least two adjacent groups with the same center despite a 3/10 difference in charge. That's why I do initial powder and seating depth testing at shorter ranges and accept the results for my long-range load development. There are some limitations to short-range testing, but far more often than not, the powder charge and seating depth that shoots well at short range will also shoot well at long range. For those with a keyboard at the ready, let me be perfectly clear. In my rifles, I find that it is easier to do initial testing at short range than verify the results at long range, rather than trying to scratch my head while wearing barrels out at long range from the beginning. To answer the inevitable question, no, it doesn't always work. But defensive measures like those described in my seating depth fine-tuning video sure help to prevent bad outcomes. You know, not just picking the smallest group stuff. If this content is bringing you value, please like and subscribe. If you would like to support the work we do here, please visit us on Patreon. Links are in the description. All right, now that we have satisfied our need for a good harmonic profile at short range, we also need an acceptable level of velocity variation. What is required at long range changes from distance to distance and bullet to bullet. But let's take my 284 with 180 grain Berger hybrids, for example. If I want to make sure my vertical waterline is no more than 4 inches, I would need, in a perfect world, a velocity spread that changes no more than 8 feet per second from shot to shot. I cover this some in my ES and SD video. I'll put a link up in the top corner here somewhere. That is where velocity flattening comes in. If the velocity flattens at the same point where the harmonics are good, then you have a better chance that the load is going to be good for long range. On the other hand, you can also have excellent velocity spreads with a powder charge range that doesn't shoot well at all. Those spots will also likely show velocity flattening. So how do I tell the difference? The first thing I do when starting to develop a load is look for all the information I can find from top-level shooters in my discipline. The questions I have to answer, are any of them using this combination? And what velocities are they running? I'm not saying to copy their load, just to consider the velocity range in which they are finding success. If you find yourself choosing between two velocities, and one is a known successful range for that brass powder and projectile combination, that is a better place to look first, wouldn't you think? Whatever you do, just don't fall for the siren song of higher velocities and better wind drift. That should not be a consideration in load development. And I struggle with that all the time myself. Give this video a look if you want to know how that works out. Now that I have the harmonics under control and the velocity spreads are good enough, I can go to mid-range or long-range for testing. If you aren't an experienced and seasoned competitor with excellent local range knowledge and wind skills, this would best be done during a practice session rather than a match. Most seasoned competitors I know tend to test during local matches, on the other hand. You will know you have the middle of your powder node when, at long range, you get good groups not sometimes, but all the time. And the rifle doesn't throw occasional high or low flyers outside the group without a very obvious cause. You know, like everyone else on the line hitting high at the same time you did? Alright, in summary, I don't believe that velocity flattening defines a powder node. Instead, it shows areas likely to have lower velocity spreads. Now, if your rifle is perfectly designed and built to have harmonics that align with that low velocity spread, then you will be able to use the flattening for finding your node. But it always has to be tested to see if the harmonics align with one of the flat spots. In the end, a powder node is where the rifle shoots best, regardless of chronograph readings. Well, that's all I have for this one. Thank you for watching, and a special thanks to my patrons. Without you, I couldn't do this. Alright everyone, go out, shoot straight, do some load development, and I'll see you on the range.